Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wholehearted Loving. I'm Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Georgiana.
Today, we're going to be walking you guys through a body-based self-connection practice to help you be with worry and to shift focus away from stewing in worry. If you would like self-reflection questions to go with this episode, and with every episode, you can find those on our Instagram at Wholehearted Loving. Before we get started, we're going to do a body-based self-connection practice to connect with ourselves before we connect with each other and this podcast.
Okay, well, this was Stephanie's idea and I really like it. We're going to walk you through a body connection practice that we're actually going to build on throughout this episode and practice using it to help support us when we feel worried about things. So let's find what that anchor point, sturdy point is, where you notice your body being supported by the surface that you're sitting on, standing on, laying on. So for me, it's my feet on the ground, but I also feel a sturdiness through pushing the palms of my hands into my legs. And what we'll do when you're ready is we'll turn our heads to the left and just take a look at what's there. And be there for a full breath, a full inhale, a full exhale. And you might want to feel your feet or your butt again. And we're going to turn our attention with our gaze to in front of us. So we're turning our head from looking to the left to straight ahead. And just being with what's in front of you for a moment. And then we'll shift again and turning to the right. Just looking at what's ahead on your right and perhaps bringing some awareness to your body. I can still feel, I'm deliberately pushing my hands into my legs so I can feel that body connection, and I'm looking to my right. And then that's it. Just resettle in whatever way feels good for you.
Lovely. So what is this doing for us when we're focusing, like scientifically, physiologically, when we're looking from left, forward, and right?
Well, I like to see it as when I look to the left, like I'm deliberately bringing my awareness to the left. Like I wasn't looking to the left before that. And then I'm learning to pause with whatever's there. So instead of like looking to the left and immediately shifting, I'm staying there for a moment. So in that, I feel like we're growing the muscle of presence, of just being there for a moment. And then it's growing the muscle of being able to intentionally shift focus to something else or somewhere else. The turning from the left to forward facing. And again, at this spot, to stay here for a moment, to connect to body or breath for a moment. And then the ability and intention again to shift that focus one more time. And to also add an element of slowness, the pause, right? So you notice we didn't just rush right through from left to center to right. We paused with each one, and we also didn't stay there forever. Right? So growing that ability to be with things, intentionally shift attention and be there for a bit, and then intentionally shift again.
This is a really good example of those things that I would have totally rushed through before and not been able to even understand what it meant to be with someone, to be present for a moment slowly. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things that feels maybe silly and tiny to those of you listening, but the intention of stopping and pausing and being with something is going to fold out in so many beautiful ways into your life if what you want is to feel more connected and bring more presence to each moment.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of a lot of people when we start working with them, and myself as well years ago, have a tendency to speak really fast. And so they could tell you their whole life story, including some really emotional, heavy things, without you noticing any change in expression or emotion. It's quite flat. It's like they're reciting the alphabet or something.
Yeah.
And we'll have people practice like really slowing it down, like shortening it to one sentence at a time. And it's like painful for people. And they like start, they so easily string together another 3, 4, 5 sentences before we're like, let's just, I say, let's put a period there, like at the end of the sentence, and just pause. And what they all notice is, oh, I feel very different in my body if I pause after each sentence. My body has the time to catch up with what the words are actually saying, and I feel something about this. And sometimes people are surprised. I didn't know I felt so emotional about this thing. Right? I've been telling people all my life about what was hard about it, and I didn't really feel anything. And so they're bringing awareness to the emotion that's just under the surface. But the other thing that's really cool is they're learning to practice growing their capacity, their ability to be with sensation and be with uncomfortable sensation, but just one tiny bit at a time, right? If you're being with the sensation of the story of your life one sentence at a time, it feels much less overwhelming than let's be with the sensation of my whole life experience of all the things that were hard. Right. And that's why people often tend to prefer to be checked out in their head or like checked out in their phones, is because they're afraid to feel the stuff that's inside, because they think if they're going to feel, they have to feel something really humongous and overwhelming, and they're not equipped to do that yet. So helping people slow down, whether it's to like slow down and just look at something for a full inhale and exhale, or speaking something, whatever it is you want to say, one sentence at a time, and then taking a moment to pause and maybe feel your feet or your butt or notice your breath. It grows all these muscles that help you feel more peaceful in life.
Yeah. And be with other people's emotions, which I think this can be such a true thing for people who tend to suppress pain or feel big feelings and be challenged to be with that for themselves. It's not unusual for these sorts of people, I think us included, to desire to be there for other people in that capacity. And this helps with that so much as well.
This was a big thing for me, is it helped me see a lot and take less personally, was when I realized I am more able to be with someone in their emotion and their pain and their discomfort to the degree that I am able to do that with myself, for myself. And I've had lots of relationships with people or even parents where I just haven't felt like they could be present with me and hold and invite my emotion. I always felt it was either being shut down from sort of maybe a harsh or mean, dismissive way, or from a friendly, loving way of trying to distract or minimize.
Yeah.
Right? And, or placate or something, and offer reassurance in a way that I really didn't feel was really seeing and feeling what I was going through. And over time, I realized, oh, that's not because they don't love me or they don't care. Most likely, it has something to do with their own ability to sit with their own emotions. And people who don't have the ability to really sit with their own emotions in a compassionate way are going to have a harder time doing that for us.
Yeah, for sure. That's something I can imagine that some caretakey people listening might begin to feel worried about hearing us say that. And I wonder if we can then apply the exercise we began with and add the element of being with worry.
Okay. So what might a person that has that way of being with people, what might a worry be? Could you bring something to mind?
Oh, I'm not being helpful enough.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's use that as a worry. I'm worried that I'm not being helpful enough. Right. And so what I'll have you do is, for a moment, just have have a look towards your left and to your right. We didn't do this in the beginning practice, but I'd like to add it in for this practice. And notice if this might sound a little woo-woo or weird, and that's okay. Notice if one side represents the past and one side represents the future. And like, it may be very clear to you, or it may become clear to you, or maybe you're like, no, not really. And then if it's a no, not really, that's totally okay. Just choose a side to represent the past. What do you notice, Steph? Is it clear, unclear, no difference?
It's clear, and I think this might be like a cultural thing depending on the direction of reading and writing. So to the left is the past
Okay.
for me.
Yeah. So then what we're going to do is look towards the left. And the first version of this, I'm going to walk us through without too much body presence. I'm just going to walk us through shifting of thought, shifting of awareness. And then as we do it again, I'm going to add layers to it.
Great.
All right. So we're going to look to the left, and we're going to say, a worry that I have in this example. We're just using this example, but you can use any example of a worry, an actual worry that you have. And I would, for the sake of practicing this for the first time, choose a worry that's not too big, but one that you're familiar with. Right? So a worry that I have is I'm not being helpful enough. And then we're going to shift our awareness to the center. So just turning to the center. And we're going to say, right now, something that I see is. Right now, something that I see is a plant. And right now, something that I feel my body touching is my hands on the ottoman. And then we're going to look to the right. And we're going to say, something I want to shift my focus to right now is this humongous monstera leaf plant that is actually looking, I don't know, opposite to how my plants usually look, like well fed. And then that's it. Then we can just go sit however we want to sit, face what we want to face, think about what we want to think about. So that was just the practice of like shifting focus. Like, I'm going to give a voice to my worry. I'm going to give a voice to present moment awareness of through sight and through touch. And then I'm going to give a voice to what I want to shift my attention to. And I'm going to actually physically change the direction that I face each time. All right, what did you notice from that piece?
Well, we've been doing this practice for years, and I always love it. And it comes naturally to me now when I find myself in some sort of spiral-based thought. It reminds me of, there's a meme about grief, where grief is this little black circle. And it's not that we're trying to make the circle smaller, it's that we're building more around it. So I love this because it's acknowledging our worry or our fear or whatever's plaguing us in that moment. It's adding the layer of body sensation, which is the presence and the pause. And then it's realizing that you have a choice to change focus and to take a moment, again with pause, and ideally with something that is like sensorially pleasant to consume. Like I was looking at my headboard, which is like geometrically pleasing and cozy looking. Nice to look at, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I noticed.
Nice. Let's play with this by adding another layer to it. And then I think I'll probably walk us through a third version of it too. All right. So again, like, just notice your body and what it's connected to. I feel my right toes smushed into the ground. And then you can use the same, actually maybe use the same worry just for the sake of practicing and noticing the difference by doing it 3 different ways. So we're going to look to the left, or whichever direction represents the past for you. And we'll say our worry out loud. A worry that I have is that I'm not being helpful enough. And what we're going to do is like feel the butt or the feet. And then just be here for a full breath. And then we're going to shift our attention to center. right in front of you. And we're going to go and speak to, right now, something that I see is your face on my screen. And I'm going to feel my foot and be here for a full breath. And then we're going to shift focus to the right, or whichever side represents the future for you. And we'll speak to something I want to shift my focus to now is the mountain outside the window. And as I look at that thing, I'm going to feel my left hand on my ankle and notice my breath. Just be here for a full breath. And again, you can just reset to whatever feels good. Notice how that was. So this time, we said essentially the same things. What was different was we stayed a little bit longer and we brought some body awareness to it, like just feeling the feet or feeling the butt. All right, how was that one for you?
Neat. It added more spaciousness than the first round.
What does that mean for you, more spaciousness?
So we were looking to the left and saying the worry. It wasn't just being with the worry. It was like folding in the second step. So it was, if the second step is body awareness and being with the moment and pause, it added an additional layer of body awareness and pause with the worry.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that too, where like I spoke of the worry, but as I felt my body and stayed for a full breath, it was like energy dissipated from just focused on the energy, like dissolved a little bit or something.
Yeah, totally.
I lied, and I think I want to do 4 rounds.
Okay.
So we'll try this one again, but add a little bit more to it. And so again, let's just start with bringing some awareness to the body. I noticed that my face is itchy, so I'm just going to scratch that. And that can be our body awareness, right? It's just tending to the body. All right, so we'll turn to whichever direction represents the past for you, or whichever direction you chose to start with. And we'll say that worry again, but this time we're going to place a hand somewhere that feels comforting for you. And we're going to say the worry out loud. A worry that I have is, or right now I'm worried about, however you want to phrase that. Or a part of me worries about not being helpful enough. I'm going to feel my hand that's offering some nurturing touch. And feel my butt on the seat. And just be here for a full breath. Like there's no rush. And also I know I'm not staying here forever. And then I'm going to shift my focus to in front of me. I've shifted my hand. It's still on my body, but it's sort of tucked under my shirt for a little bit of skin to skin contact that feels comforting. And then again, I'll use the prompt. Something that I see right now is my timer. And something that I feel my body touching, I feel my left leg touching the ottoman. I'm going to feel my hand and the comfort that it brings. I'm going to notice my butt on the seat. And be here for a breath. And then I'm going to shift focus again. And just naturally, my body just took a huge deep breath. And I'm going to say something I want to shift my focus to right now is this orange roof I see on a building far away. And I'm noticing the comfort from my hand. And I feel my butt on the seat. And I'm just here for a breath. And that's it.
This round was neat because it added this element of holding and self-soothing. So we have the dimension of acknowledging the worry, of noticing and being with the body, and then holding ourselves in that space, which is so
Mm-hmm.
sweet.
So sweet. And what I loved about it is I wasn't holding myself only in the worry section, but also in the present moment section, and also in the section of, hey, where do I want to shift to? Like it was like, I'm along with me for the whole ride,
Yeah.
right? It's not just, oh, once you're not worried, then I'm going to drop you. It's, I'm going to hang with you and have your back the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a practice in having your own back.
Mm-hmm. So this next version, actually did this one with some men at a men's retreat. And it was a version of this with like something that's hard in my life, something that's going well, and something that's decent. But they were just so shocked at how profound something real so simple could be. And so I'm excited to share this layer of the practice. So again, just finding a way to connect to your body. I'm thirsty, so I'm actually going to take a drink. And then looking again to the direction that you started off with. And if it felt good to add a hand earlier, you can add a hand again. That offers comfort. And we're going to say that same worry. A worry that I have is that I'm not helpful enough. This time, what we're going to do, we're going to see if we can feel in our body where that worry shows up, even if it's just 1%. And I'm like, oh, I feel it in a little flutter of my solar plexus. And I feel that. And I'm going to feel my hand. And I'm going to feel my butt on the seat. And I'm just being here for a breath, feeling that worry sensation a little bit. And then I'm going to shift my focus to in front of me. And again, I notice my body just immediately takes a deep breath. And I'm going to focus on something that I see right now is a little card that someone sent me. And I'm just going to notice how it makes me feel. It makes me smile. So I'm noticing the feeling of smiling on my face. It gives me some excited feelings, actually in almost the exact same place that worry feeling was. But this time it feels, I identify with it as, oh, it's a exciting fluttering. And I'm going to let myself feel my hand and feel my butt. Be here for a breath. And then I'm going to shift. I'm going to shift to, and something that I want to shift my focus to right now is, and you can choose something that like is exciting or pleasant or like just something not unpleasant seems like a better choice. And shift your focus to that thing and notice what sensation is present for you, shifting your focus to this thing. It could be just a really neutral experience. It might not be super exciting, but notice how neutral might feel in your body. I'm shifting my focus to dried flowers. They were fresh flowers at once, but they were sent to me and they're dry and they're in a pretty bowl on the windowsill. And as I shift my focus to that, I feel a little like warm and softness inside, sort of in my upper chest. So I'm just being with that feeling and sensation. Feeling my hand. My hand is now on my shoulder. And feeling my butt on the seat. Noticing my breath. And that's it.
That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds tiny, but it's so big.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time, I think we were in this workshop together somewhere in Gastown, like in maybe 2017. And it was a boundaries workshop. Do you remember this?
I think I remember, yeah.
We went through this body mapping, which we do now in our groups as well, of locating where emotional responses exist in our body. And it was so impactful for me because at the time I thought I was fine. I thought everything was fine and that I didn't have any anger, of course. And I think we were asked to relive a moment that caused us to be some kind of way. And I think I chose anger.
Hmm.
And I mapped all of the experience that I was having physically and sensorially about that. And remember that I'm now living in a time where I thought I had no anger. So shortly after, maybe within days, I can't remember the circumstance, but the feeling of anger came up and I thought I was fine, but my body was doing those things that it had done. And I noticed that and I was like, oh my God, I'm angry. I didn't even know. And what an incredible thing to explore and discover, and to notice your body's cues that tell you what emotions might be coming up that you might otherwise be, suppressing or oblivious to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we hear that a lot of, I've experienced it, not knowing what different things felt like in my body.
Mm-hmm.
Not even, I actually, for me, it wasn't angry. It was like stressed. I used to walk around pride myself with like, I'm not stressed. You're stressed, but I'm not stressed. What's there to
You
be
are.
stressed about? And it wasn't until I really learned how to be in the body and be slow and notice and find comfort in slowness that I was like, holy crap, you mean I've been stressed my whole life? Because like this is something different. This is not stressed. And so if this is regulated and peaceful and calm, what the heck has that other thing been my whole life?
Yeah.
So, it's been a journey to learn and to practice and grow that comfort and sense of safety, being able to feel things inside.
Mm-hmm.
What I really like about this practice is it gives you an opportunity. Well, I guess I'll speak to the whole practice. I like that you own and speak of what you worry about without shame. And then what we do is we shift focus. We don't stay there. Most people stay in their worry over and over and over again for a long time. And it grows into some bigger worry and some other layers of worry, right? And we feel really gross. So we learn to shift the focus to present moment. And a lot of people say, oh, I know I should be mindful. And what does presence mean? And what does being in the present moment mean? It used to all be very vague and confusing to me. But if someone were to say, can you just say right now something that I see is whatever you see, like a picture frame. And
Yes.
right now, something I feel my body touching is my butt on the seat. I'm like, I know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you mean that's present moment awareness? Okay. Like I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
Right. So we're learning to do that. And then we're learning to shift to what next. Right. Because a lot of us don't know how to shift to, and now what? What next? And what next is the intentional choice of where do I want to place my attention? If I wanted to, sure, I could go back to worry. But here we're practicing. Let's first make a pit stop at something else other than worry, right? So I'm going to shift my focus. And it could be, I'm going to shift my focus to what I'm grateful for, right? It could be something more abstract like that. And then you get to feel the gratitude in your body. Or it can be something as practical and as simple as I'm going to shift my focus to the blue internet cable on the floor. But because whatever that is not the worry. And that's the thing. Like, we're not here to make the worry go away. We're not here to make the worry thought go away. We're just here, especially in the beginning, to interrupt an old ingrained loop of continuing to live and relive the worry over and over and over again. Right? So interrupting that old pattern. And I'll say to people, once you walk through that, and it's interesting, you talked about a spiral, right? Spiraling down and like worry. This I always see as like a through line. You start with worry and then you walk yourself through it. And then once you get to the other side of, I want to shift my focus to the car on the street. If you really wanted to, I tell people, go back to the worry and worry about, have a moment with your worry, and then just walk yourself through that again. I have a feeling at some point you're not going to want to go think about that worry again, or not as soon, or not for as long, or not as many times.
Totally. Yeah, this is, people talk a lot about creating their reality, like it's some magical woo-woo thing that they're writing a script and causing the characters to come to life. In more simple terms, it's like this. If you're focused on a worry, whatever you focus on is inevitably the reality that you're occupying in any moment. And if that
Mm-hmm.
is just a complete swirl of worry, then that's going to be your reality. And here we're just adding in bits of the greater context that all also exist all the time. We can focus on one of a million things. And if we're focusing on one of them, that's where we'll be stuck. If we add in 5 more, suddenly our reality has expanded by whatever percent that would be. I could tell you if I was a mathematician.
And you can choose what the 5 more, the flavor of the 5 more. Are they the same flavor? Or are they a
Mm-hmm.
different flavor? It's going to impact your present moment experience differently, right?
Totally.
This is one out of many, many ways of how we can learn to work with worry. This is not the only way. This is also not meant to be a way to minimize our worries, because like our worries are legitimate, right? We're feeling something. We're feeling something because we're concerned about something. So it's important to like bring awareness to that and compassion to that. This is more about, if I just stay stuck in worry and that's an old pattern, this is one way to practice growing the muscle of shifting. And when you grow the muscle of shifting, or you find other tools that help regulate you, then you can do something about the worry. Or you might come to the realization, because you have more clarity and more regulated, that that's not something I can do anything about right now anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just let that one go and shift focus to something I can do something about. Right. So I feel like it's really beneficial for so many of us to practice, because we're very good at just narrowing down on the worry and making it bigger and bigger. What else did I want to say? Oh, you mentioned something earlier about looking around. So the body posture of this practice is it opens us up to like shifting, like moving the body, but also like moving the head and neck, and moving where our eyes go and track what they track. And when we're in worry state, that's typically not how the body is positioned,
Yeah.
right? And so we're also trying to give the body some experience of something different than what it's used to. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of being tight and rigid and stuck in a position, maybe looking down or really inward, you start straightening up, you start turning, adding a little bit more mobility to the body. You add the eyes lighten up a little bit instead of being like that really scrunched up, focused, worried, kind of look with the eyes. So it gives the body also an experience of like, oh, maybe I don't have to constantly live in that tight, worried, stressed position.
Yeah, filling your eyes with additional and different information, I think, has so many positive effects in helping to expand a thought process or a worldview.
Mm-hmm. And then that last layer of, the fourth round that we did, where I suggested that we let ourselves feel the worry in the body for a moment, right? That was, again, like another example we talked about at the beginning of, can you allow yourself just to feel the sensation just a tiny bit, instead of thinking I'm not capable or there's nothing there, and then learn to shift. And people, when they do this exercise, they're always surprised that, oh, like the body experience shifted that quickly, that easily, just based on what I shifted my focus to. And they're surprised about that and relieved about that and excited about that. So that's really cool. And another sweet story about this, it was also with, I think it was 2 men. I was in some sort of workshop about like speaking. It was a speaking workshop. And I guess at some point near the end, they found out, or I told them, I don't know, that I was a counselor and a coach. And they said, oh, can we ask you something? Sure. Do you have something like that's helpful for when you worry a lot, when you ruminate a lot? Like my girlfriend's like ruminating a lot all the time and like so much anxiety. And so I was like, sure, you want to practice something right now? And they were like, okay. So I walked them through that. And they're like, wow. And I sort of explained it briefly of like, you're growing the muscle, being able to shift, right? When you're in like deep anxiety and worry, like you're not able to shift. Like, oh, I can really see the benefit of growing that muscle. And that was really neat. It was neat to hear that from people who were not necessarily like in this work, doing this work, trying to learn these things, but just a, off the cuff question that they thought, why not? There's a counselor here. Let's ask something.
Cool.
And I think they probably thought I would give them like a real like logical wordy answer of, oh, maybe you should try this. And I just said, well, do you want to try something? And they were up for it. And so we did. And they got to experience it.
Yeah. Impactful.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me think of another practice. Is there anything that you want to say more on this one before I suggest a closing practice for us?
No, I think that's good. I mean, other than just, you don't have to do all 4 versions. You can just notice how each one felt. The 4th version maybe feels like too much right now. That would be okay. Choose a version that you feel is accessible for you to practice and start practicing. And I mean, maybe I'll speak a little bit too, because I feel like people ask, why are we looking for the past and the future? And like, how does that relate to things? I'm going to say, just for me, based on feeling, like I've liked working with this past, present, future, because people who worry a lot typically live in the past or daydream about the future. Mm-hmm. But we don't know how to like spend a moment in each one and shift through it. And we definitely don't spend any time in the present. Yeah. So I just like to include that into the practice. I also like what it symbolizes of like, I had this worry and then in front of me now is this. And then what I could focus on, like moving forward, is this other thing. So like symbolically, like the movement and like knowing which side represents past and future, I think adds another layer.
Yeah, that intention for sure. That's a dynamic. Okay, so you said something about these men at the retreat and their the girlfriend who worries a lot. Mm-hmm. And it made me think about those of us who launch into action instead of sitting with worry. Mm. And I wonder if there's a practice you can walk us through. I mean, the ones we just did would also work, but I wonder if there's something that would be good for people when they can remember, which won't always be the case in the moment. But if you're feeling like you need to take some kind of action, and maybe you know it's not the best time to take an action, but your anxiety and your worry is propelling you into action, and you want to maybe be still for a moment and redirect that energy in some way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll give you one that maybe appeals even more to the people who like have a hard time thinking about being still, who just actually are still in, I get pulled when something is off or there's a worry to straight into action. And there's 2 practices I would suggest. And you and I are not standing right now. But if we were standing, I'll describe it as in a standing exercise first. We just stand, and we can do this sitting. Just push your left foot into the floor, and say foot or feet. Foot. And then put your right foot and smush that one down, and say foot or feet.
Foot.
And I would actually encourage you, if you have the opportunity, to like stand up and walk. Because usually if we're doing something, we're walking or we're standing, right? If you're doing something about a problem, you're probably standing or walking. So as you walk, you can just pace around. Each time you feel your foot taking a step on the floor, just say foot or feet. So that's the first thing I would recommend. Just because it's often that in action you're standing. And what that's doing is it's just bringing awareness to the body. So I'll tell people, like, if you're still caught up in an old protective pattern or an old autopilot pattern, or even an old pattern that is like somewhat harmful, like not great for you, but like it's not immediately putting you in danger, then just do the thing and not shame yourself for it. And just add a little bit of body presence to it. right? People talk a lot about, oh, I just like disassociate on Netflix or scroll my phone. I'm like, great, scroll your phone. And I had a client do this once. I said, okay, show me that where you usually scroll your phone. She's like, oh, in my bed. I said, okay, well, lay exactly as you would when you're scrolling your phone. She's like, okay. And I said, hold your phone in the way you would hold your phone when you're like zoned out, checked out. She's like, okay. I said, can you notice where your body is touching the bed? She's like, yep. I was like, okay, just feel that for a moment. Okay. Can you notice your hand holding the phone? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just feel that for a breath. Okay. And I said, that's it. Go and disassociate with your phone and check out and just practice bringing awareness to your body laying on your bed and your hand on your phone. Like, is that accessible? She's like, oh yeah, I could do that. But that's the beginning of like coming out of this fog, right, that has protected us and coming back into body without shaming ourselves for scrolling the phone or watching, binging Netflix. Right. So the same thing, if you're a worrier and you tend to need to like be doing something in order to alleviate some of your worry, can you feel your feet on the ground as you do that? Right. The other thing is, can you pick something up right now? I just picked up a purple highlighter. And can you really feel this thing in your hand? You might even notice that it's not in your other hand. It's only in one of your hands. Right? For me, I'm squishing it in different ways with my fingers, my palms. I'm just sort of feeling it. And that's it. And so what we want to help you with there is growing the awareness of sensation in your hands. Because when you're in action, you're often doing something, touching something with your hands. Even if you're sitting and like on the computer, your hands are on the computer, on the keyboard. Your hands are on your phone, right? So if you can just bring in a little bit of awareness of the feet or the hands while you're in your autopilot pattern, that's a great beginning.
Yeah. Pattern interruption with body support and awareness. It's beautiful and without shame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gigi. Anything else you want to say?
I just want to say, like, how many people have told us that these simple practices of noticing the feet and the hands have been like the gateway for them for like so much more change. They're like, well, I practice noticing what's in my hand, and then I realized I don't actually want to like worry about this thing anymore. Or I don't actually want to be doing this thing anymore. But like without that pause, like we talked, I think on episode 1 of this podcast, the ability to grow the pause. Without the pause, you can't make that next intentional choice. You can't check in with what feels better for you. We're just totally on autopilot, often directed by fear and worry.
Yeah.
Right?
And we're super adaptable. Humans are incredibly adaptable. So without noticing it, we're like, what is it? Frogs in boiling water?
Poor frogs.
Yeah, poor frogs. Yeah. So growing that pause means that, as you say, we can make that conscious choice. We can notice what's not working for us, what's not feeling good, what pots we'd like to jump out of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Okay.
Well, then that's it for this episode, and we'll see you guys next week. Please do like, follow, and subscribe. And if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share with somebody that you care about. We'll see you next time.
Bye.